The lotus flower, rooted in murky waters yet still reaching toward the light. Hi, my name is Maria, and this is the third painting in my tiny canvas collection. For this piece, I wanted to paint something that represents Macau, a lotus flower, which is delicate in appearance but quietly resilient. I've always loved the symbolism of it, not just because it's beautiful, but because of what it takes to bloom. Alright, you already know how this goes. Let's get our reference photo and let's start sketching. I just started by sketching out the basic shape of the flower and placing the petals where I wanted them. Since lotus flowers have so many overlapping petals, I tried not to make the sketch too detailed. I just wanted a simple symmetrical base to build on. I came to Macau when I was 24, and I have now been living here for almost 9 years, which honestly feels surreal to say out loud. And when I think about what Macau means to me, I think about growth, change, resilience, and all the ways a place can shape you over time. When I first moved here, everything felt unfamiliar. Not necessarily in a bad way, just in that very real way that happens when you're somewhere new and everything has a different rhythm. The sounds, the pace, the language, the atmosphere, all of it makes you pay attention differently. And I think that's why I chose the lotus flower for this painting, because some seasons of life feel unfamiliar in every way, and yet growth is still happening underneath the surface. So now we're trying to mix a soft blue for the background. I ended up adding a little bit of that light lilac and a little bit more white, and I was finally happy with it. And then, you know what? I decided we don't need a stem. So off with that stem, and we're just gonna block the whole shape. After mixing my ideal pink, I started blocking all of the petals, and at this stage I'm mostly just mapping out the main tones and giving the flower a bit of shape before going in with more detail. And honestly, from here it's basically the same thing over and over again, layering the pinks, adding more shadow, defining each petal little by little. So instead of pretending that every petal needs its own explanation, I thought I'd just talk a little bit more about why this painting means so much to me. I moved here at 24 years old, which now feels both very young and weirdly grown at the same time, like old enough to make big life decisions, but still young enough to not fully realize how much those decisions might shape you. Looking back at that version of me who first arrived here, I can see that it was a season of growth. Not the neat, obvious kind of growth, more like the quiet kind. The kind that's happening while you're still trying to make sense of everything. So now it's when we start adding a darker pink, so we start adding more definition to our petals and bringing in some stronger pink tones. I still wanted everything to stay soft, but with enough contrast to give the flower some depth. And that's why I'm adding that pale pink between the petals. Some chapters in life are tender and complicated at the same time, beautiful in some ways and disorienting in others, but still full of growth. I think that's really why the lotus felt right for this piece, because it's beautiful, but it's also rooted in difficult conditions. And that felt so relatable to me. One of the strangest things about living somewhere for a long time is realizing that what once felt so foreign can become completely ordinary and eventually deeply, deeply personal. I didn't notice exactly when it happened, but somewhere along the way, Macau stopped feeling temporary. And I think living in a new place changes the way you think about belonging. Sometimes you expect a place to either feel like home straight away or not at all, but I don't think it really works like that. I think belonging happens slowly through repetition, through streets you recognize, through sounds that stop feeling unfamiliar, through those little routines that quietly become part of your life. This part of the process is actually one of my favorites, even though it's repetitive. There's something really calming about doing the same gentle thing over and over and slowly watching everything come together. Tiny canvases humble me a little bit, but they always make me slow down in a way I really, really like. And yeah, at this point, we're just refining everything, softening the edges, adjusting highlights, and making sure the petals still feel layered, but without losing that whimsical look. And this is where I feel like I've messed up because I decided to add some shadow to the bottom of the flower. I don't think it needed it, but oh well. So I just added a little purple to my blues and I went for it. Look, sometimes we make mistakes and we regret them, but it is what it is. It didn't ruin the painting, I don't think, but I think I would prefer that it wasn't there. So you see me changing my brushes so I can blend the wet colors together and try to smooth that out. I was so tired while I was painting this. It was after a long day at work. This was probably after midnight because I just felt like I needed to slow down and create something in order to be able to go to sleep. I guess this painting ended up being less about the flower itself and more about what it holds. Not just a city, but it's a season of my life, a version of me that is still being lived. And that's what I love about Tiny Canvas Collection. It lets me revisit places, memories, and parts of myself with, a little more softness. Thank you all for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.